Hi there, and welcome to an interview with Kristina and Sarah. They have just published a gorgeous book, and it's called the Knitting Pattern Writing Handbook. And I'm mostly here today to rave about it because I think it's absolutely amazing. And I want these women to share with you a little bit about themselves and how they got to this point and why this book is so important. So if we haven't met before, my name's Becky. I'm the owner of Nomadic Knits, and we like to talk about books. So welcome, Kristina and Sarah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi.
Thank you for having us, Becky.
Oh, you're welcome. And where are you guys coming from? Where are you located right now, roughly?
I'm in Massachusetts, so I'm in the Northeast US.
All right.
And
Me
I
too.
live just south of the Oklahoma border in Texas, North Texas. So I'm in the south.
Okay. Very nice. So you're probably a little cozier than we are today.
Yeah, it's in the 80s.
It is, been dipping for us. I'm in upstate New York, so
Okay.
yeah, it's been taking a little bit of a dive here, but that's okay.
Winter is coming. Winter
right.
is coming.
Knit faster.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to start with you, Kristina, and I was wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you learn to knit?
I learned to knit at a knit life class at a high school when my firstborn was almost 2. I'd never been interested in crafts. I never really liked them. So I didn't get the benefit of the wisdom and talent and experience of the wonderful people in my family who have these talents. Cause I was like, no, thanks. And then I read about it in a yoga magazine and I was like, what's this all about? Cause I was kind of needing something for me that, God, I fell in love like that night. The first night of the class, I drove to AC Moore, whatever, and bought more stuff. So because it wasn't enough to have the one project that we had started, I wanted to cast on again that she taught us, and so
Oh,
that's, and then I just forget it. I got obsessed, and that was the end of that.
I love the way you describe it because that excitement that, when you first realize like, oh, this is something I can do and now I can get all these supplies. Oh, that feeling, such a rush. And how about you, Sarah?
I learned how to knit when I was a kid from my mom, but I didn't like it. I preferred to crochet. So I was a crocheter all the way through maybe my 30s. And I ended up being a homeschool mom where I was homeschooling my 3 children. And while they were doing their lessons, I needed something to do with my hands, but crocheting for some reason was irritating like all the twisting was hurting my arms. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'll knit. And so it was right about the early 2000s where stuff was starting to come online where you could like go to a video online and watch it. And I re-taught myself how to knit. And I realized I didn't want to throw anymore with my right hand. I wanted to tension with my left. And so I taught myself through some videos online. I don't remember what it's called, like knittinghelp.com or something.
Knittinghelp.com.
It
So
was,
good. What
it
a
was
great website that was.
It was before YouTube. It was before Ravelry.
She was awesome. I love that website.
And then I was obsessed because I realized this is so much faster and I could start to apply all the things that I had learned growing up, making my own clothes that, oh, wait, I can do this with knitting. And it was pretty exciting.
That is so you were both knitting and then I did some snooping because I wanted to know how you would come to make this amazing book. And I read, and you can tell me if I'm correct or not, that you had both taken a course on tech editing. Is that what happened?
Mm-hmm. And we met. Oh no, sorry. Go ahead. Did you have more?
No.
Oh well, we were in a business community online, and we we'd seen each other in there, and one day we were just working on the same things, and we became accountability partners. Like way back, we had only had our businesses.
It was like 2018.
Yeah, like I mean, not even that long, and we just started. We became friends, and we talked a lot about work and a lot about the kinds of things we were seeing and and experiencing with our clients and with our work. And it was really special. It's really good.
We both took the same tech editing course, which is how we met. And the way we both got there is we both were so obsessed with knitting, we wanted to work from home with our craft. And we found out that, hey, you can edit knitting patterns, and it like opened all, like the angels saying, the heavens open. Woo! It was
We were pretty, we like couldn't
perfect.
believe that it was made for us. We've said that before, both of us, and separately, just like it felt like that. Like, you gotta be kidding me. I can take all the things I'm good at and do it in knitting. Oh,
Yeah.
sign me up.
And so being part of this little tiny tech editor community allowed us to not only connect together as business colleagues, but with other tech editors, technical editors. And we started to just get a lot of questions. There were questions that came up in our group. There was questions that came up in just conversations with other people online. This was all online. And we didn't meet in person until a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And so we decided to start answering people's questions in.
Well, but remember, not to interrupt you, Sarah,
Oh
but
yeah, go
remember
ahead,
that,
back up. I'm going too fast.
well, yeah, because for both of us, we really built our businesses by answering questions.
Exactly.
Even before we had any designs on doing something like a video, like we ended up doing in 2020, just all the things we put out there and the way that we demonstrated our skills was by answering people's questions. So when we found us, like, we're all at home, and we were like, why don't we answer these questions? Why don't we just go live on Instagram? We'll just answer people's questions. We'll just,
Yeah. It was the height of the pandemic. Like, we were all in lockdown, and we decided, hey, let's just go on once a week, and people would come on. It was a special time in history where people were just always online.
right.
And we would have people show up and just ask question after question, and we'd spend an hour just answering.
Yeah. And then we were like, well, maybe we need to focus. If we're going to have people answering questions and we're answering the same things, let's organize a little bit. So we decided to make the tech tip talks the first ones that we did. And we did, like, we had a topic for every video that we did. And we did that. And then we felt like, okay, we did all the topics, shared all the information everybody needs. No, do we do? Okay. And then, but this whole time we're getting more questions. We're getting questions. So we started doing live Q&As again and answering questions.
And interviewing people that we
And
knew.
then we started interviewing guests, tech editors, designers, people in the industry. Yep.
To kind of broaden the scope of the answers.
Yeah.
Like asking
Because
them
it was
questions.
like, so
Yeah,
we've been answering questions
yeah.
and we've been sharing what we know. How would another tech editor approach this? What is a designer's experience of this? And how would they answer this question? What advice would they offer? How would it be for them? Get a different perspective than just the two of us.
And then we realized two things. First of all, a lot of this information, people are like, how do you know this? And we're like, well, we know it because we're working. We had already edited hundreds of patterns. We're working daily in this sphere. And we're like, how do people not know this? And we realized there were a lot of gatekeepers in the industry.
Yes.
And a lot of information that we had access to, or we had learned ourselves through our work, people didn't have access to. It wasn't easy to find. There wasn't one website where you could send people.
Right.
And we were like, it would be great if we didn't have to keep answering the same questions over and over again, that we could hand people a reference. And then I don't know how we got to that, but hey, Kristina, let's write a book.
I think also Sarah and I care a lot about what we do. We care a lot about, as tech editors, we cared a lot about the patterns being good for knitters. That was really important. And I think that that's something maybe we don't talk about a lot, but that's like the undercurrent of this whole project.
And of the industry.
Is patterns being good for knitters. So when we were getting patterns coming across our desk and tech editing things and finding the mistakes, and that's how we ended up with the information we learned that we were able to suss out and find out the truth that we were able to share, was through, like Sarah said, trial and error, working on these patterns and finding what wasn't working for designers and what was going wrong and how to solve these problems, because we wanted the patterns to be good for knitters. And that's what we are so passionate about.
Yes.
We feel like there's something really important in our industry that, yes, patterns is what makes things run. And one of our guests recently said this is like, you don't have good patterns. What are people going to make with the yarn? You know, you have a dyer who dyes something and it's like beautiful yarn. The first thing we want to do is, what am I going to make? The patterns are crucial. They're like the turning, the point where the makers experience the fiber and make something beautiful. And if they don't trust the pattern, they have a bad experience with a pattern. Wow.
We've all made bad patterns. It's no good.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
So
painful. It leaves a mark. We're all scarred from that one experience, you know, especially as beginners, when you don't know what you don't know, and you pick up a pattern and you have this blind faith that this person who put this pattern out there must know, right? And it just isn't always so. Which I think is another gift that the two of you are giving to the knitting community, is you're helping us designers elevate our craft. And I truly feel like you've built a bridge for those of us who, for anybody who's designing, but I didn't grow up in the fiber community. I came to knitting later in life. I didn't have anyone around me that I could ask questions of. And so I still have a lot of questions left. When I started designing, really the best I could do was look at the patterns of people that I admired and see what they had done. But you didn't know how they had gotten from point A to point B. It's very hard to see what is happening behind the scenes. And that's why I feel like this book is that bridge from point A to point B, from this vision in your head to creating something that knitters can actually can happily use. And I think that, I know this book is geared toward designers, but I think that it's valuable for all of us knitters, because understanding what is in a good pattern and what to look for, and why it's there, like understanding the why. Last year, I started watching a lot of Patty Lyons and read her book, Knitting Tips and Tricks, which I love. And I love that she focuses on the why. And I feel like this book digs into that as well. And I think it's going to help knitters grow, and it's going to help designers support them as well. Sorry, that's my little my little burst of excitement about how important I think this is.
It's exciting to see your enthusiasm for it, because that was our goal. Our goal was to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit about what we do in our work as tech editors, because it's not a mystery. We go in there and we make sure things are correct and clear and concise and not difficult, not confusing. And the beauty about this is that really you can be a great designer and have a beautiful idea, but how do you translate that into a difficult technical language so that your makers, when they read the page, can actually create the same thing that you have in your head? It's not easy. And we wanted to make that easier for people by giving them an insight into our work and what we look for as technical editors, to just kind of give people a leg up, give them some tools.
Well, I think what you said before, Becky, about you don't know what you don't know, is that a designer might not know why a pattern isn't working for a knitter, or what they're getting wrong, or what they need to include, and wouldn't even know it needed to be there, wouldn't know they needed to consider it. Like just the chapter on gauge. I think there may be bits of that will be surprising or like aha to people. I think that in the ways that it can help knitters is maybe help them evaluate the patterns that they want to make, to see if it's going to serve what they want, if it's going to be what they want. And I hope it can help them evaluate patterns that they want to make. And the charts chapter, like if you're not someone that's not your thing, but you want to offer charts to your knitters, or you want to, figure out how to make them work well in your pattern, you know, hopefully we've guided you to do that. And just the things to watch out for, just the things to check, you know.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will do that.
One of the things that our audience has said has been most useful is the checklists. Every
I was
chapter,
just going to talk about that. Yes, please go ahead and
every
explain that.
single chapter has two things. So we talk about a topic. So we're going to talk about gauge or charts or sweater problems, like sweater fit problems. But then at the end, you've got a checklist of the main topics that we went through so that you can say, oh, if I'm measuring gauge, okay, this is what I got to remember. And then we also answer questions specific to that topic that we've received from our audience.
Yeah,
This
those
is
are
actually
questions we got. Those are
verbatim.
questions we got. We went through, we had them, and these are questions we got.
And we don't want people to have to go all over our YouTube channel to find all the questions, right? We decided,
Yes.
hey, it really is
Thank
useful
you.
to have this in a written form that people can reference. We chose this size of the book on
On
purpose.
purpose.
Because it fits right in your knitting bag, and you
It
cannot,
does.
like, it is nigh indestructible, folks. I mean, this thing is
It's
a
beautifully bound.
solid little hunk of goodness, and it is the perfect size. I love that. And it's on nice paper as well.
The paper's
Really nice
important.
paper.
You know,
It matters.
we're like you, Becky. We're book people, and we went to bat for our book that it would not be spiral bound.
Mm.
We were just so excited when we found out it was going to be hardbound, and we
Yes.
really wanted paper that you could write on. I'm a person who does marginalia, so like I love getting like notes in the columns next. And people have told us this very nice that there is a wider place to write things.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is kind of a working book, right? And
Right.
if you're going to be working in it, you need to be able to make notes and write. And that's one of the first things we talked to the publisher about was like, look, we have it's important to us what the actual book is going to be. And it's part of what we want to do is how the pages will be, how the book will be. Like with this, one of the early things we talked about.
The
It
other thing,
matters.
it does matter. And the
Yeah.
other thing is this is not, we have had people who've read it cover to cover, like sat down, just read it over the weekend, but it doesn't have to be used that way. Our goal was that it would be a useful reference for where you're at. So let's say you want information on accessibility, like how do I make a pattern accessible? You can go into the index and look it up, and then go to just that part and look at how we answered that question or what suggestions we've made. Or maybe you're at the point where you're like, oh, hey, I want to create a pattern that people can buy and make. What do I do next? Oh, I need a tech editor. How do I hire a tech editor? We got a whole chapter on it.
Then there are references, resources, appendices at the end. So even if you don't look things up, you can go, oh, I got to go look up how to make my style sheet. I got to go check this sizing standard. What book should I use for XYZ? It's all in there.
Yeah.
When they say appendices, I mean, this is some serious data that they're sharing with you. I mean, there are numbers upon numbers and visuals, and also, references to where you can find further information. I mean, I feel like if we had this when we started creating Nomadic Knits, I mean, it would have been life-changing, and that's not hyperbole. It would have, because all of these things about that you don't think about when you look at a well done pattern, because you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Just the section on style sheets alone. And if you're not familiar, style sheet is basically when you're choosing the formatting for your patterns that you want to be consistent across all of your patterns. This was, as a magazine, this was pretty high up on our list of to-dos. And because we were receiving patterns from different designers, multiple different designers every issue, they would come in all different types of formats, not having been tech edited, and we would have to fit them to our own specific style. And this book lays it all out for you. So say you're an aspiring designer or publisher and you want to have consistency across your patterns. There's a checklist in this book that walks you through things that you need to choose, colors and fonts and sizes and abbreviations, and how you will display repeats. That was one of the things that I found interesting, asterisks versus parentheses. And so it really is just a step-by-step guide and literal checklist throughout the whole process. I mean,
I love how the
just,
checklists have how they can move you through the book. I will never forget the
Yeah.
day Sarah says to me, Kristina, I think every chapter needs a checklist. Because we had our main checklist, right? The
Right.
pre-edit checklist that was in the book and that we
Mhm.
have. She was like, I think every chapter needs it. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's write them up. And then, and it's a different way of going through the chapter and a different way of looking at the chapter and helping you zero in on what you need to focus on at the end of the day.
I just want to talk a little bit about the fact that this book is, I've had my family's read part of it and they're like, I can hear your voice in it, but we worked really hard to not have this be my book, not have this be Kristina's book, but
Yeah.
a real collaborative work. Our goal as who we are in our business isn't to elevate community over competition. Our goal as business owners is to lift other people up. And we really wanted this book to be something that kind of pushes back on, oh, this is the way it's always done. Or push on this whole thought that I've got to, elbow my way up. We want to be helpful. And we want to make sure everybody has the same access and tools and ability to go farther. We want to elevate knitting patterns in the industry, yes, but we also see this as a bigger job of creating size inclusive patterns, creating patterns that help other people. That isn't just, anyways, I think there's
inclusivity is also creating access.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
you do that by sharing what you know. And if our videos that we made that we built this book off of, it's both of us that make that work and that contribute to the information and how it's shared and what's being relayed. And we are really excited that we were able to keep that, like that our voice is united in there and like you can
Unified.
hear us.
It was hard work because kudos to our editors, man, that they were able to maintain our ideas and our way of talking, but also it's not distinctive, like, oh, you can only hear Sarah, you can only hear Kristina. We really wanted it to be something that was joined.
Well, and some things that they would want to change, we'd be like, yeah, but this is really how we said it, this is what we want to say. And, some things like Sarah was saying about things always being done a certain way means they have to be done that way. It's really important in life, but also in designing inclusive patterns, meaning it's for everybody, that you don't get mired down in, well, this is the way it's always been done. Well, this way doesn't work for
everyone.
And this way isn't going to work in this instance. So while that's good, for what it's good for, it's not gonna be good for this. So we're not gonna just throw this out that we think is important because of how something's always been done. We're not here for that.
I think our goal with this book was to give hope too.
Yeah.
You talk, Becky, like some of the people who may be watching this are just knitters and not designers. But I would say if they read this book, they might go, hey, I can write a knitting pattern. I could. After you read this book, you could say, well, now I've got all the tools that I need. I think it provides a lot of information and hope that this is not the mystery that I thought it was.
Well, and you talk about accessibility and inclusivity, and I had mentioned the book felt like a bridge to me, and you'd also mentioned the gatekeeping of all this information before, and it did feel as if there was no way to find it. And now there is this very tangible way to find this information. And I think it's going to open the doors to so many more people to do those things, whether they want to design or not. But I do think that, there are a lot of people who they're like, oh, I didn't use a pattern. I just knit this. But they don't say that they designed it because they didn't write it down. And now they have the tools to do so. And they can learn the skills to communicate with a tech editor, to take it one step further, to sort of up level that design. And I do feel that you provided this accessibility to information that just really wasn't available anywhere before in one
volume.
volume. I mean, one tiny little throw it in your knitting
It's
bag
in your project
volume.
bag.
Yeah. I mean,
there are a lot of design books for all different kinds of things you want to make, so many design books and things like that to help you figure that out. But how, like Sarah said earlier, you're getting that on the written page that people can follow and reproduce successfully. And I think that, like, there's like you were saying about the style sheets, I mean, there's a kind of a theme running through all of the chapters about consistency and communication and evenness. And that's for everything. That's for your grading. That's for how you communicate everything in the pattern. That's for how you communicate with the collaborators, people you're working with, dyers, deck editors, knitters. That's for how you've styled it. That's for how you write the instructions. Everything needs to be done consistently for it to work. And everything needs to be communicated clearly for it to work. So that's kind of like what it's all about.
Wasn't that part of your 4 C's? The book opens to your 4 C's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's what are they? Consistency.
Go.
I have
Come on,
I have it
Kristina.
right here. I've got
clarity,
it.
consistency, conciseness, correctness.
Yes. Yes.
And
For a
I
knitting
think
pattern to
someone
be
that-
successful, it must be correct, clear, concise, and consistent.
And we grab that from, basic copy editing. I mean, this is that's not our idea.
It's what it is.
This is what happens if you edit any kind of publication. These characteristics have to be there, and it absolutely applies to something this technical.
Yeah.
Well, because don't forget, it's not it's a pattern for clothing that has to be specific and done well to fit a body, and that is its purpose. That is its goal. That's what it has to do. So yes, this instruction to get you there has to be all those things, or you're not going to be able to get your goal, your end result of what it's supposed to give you. So.
And I think the other thing about this, and I know we've talked about how everyone has a bad experience with patterns. What that actually does to relationships is key. If you're a hand dyer and you produce, you work with a pattern writer to produce a pattern for a particular colorway that's special, and then when people go to work the pattern, it doesn't work. The numbers, say the cast on numbers are wrong, or whatever it is, whatever error there is, it's confusing. You're missing a chart. You don't have a schematic. What that actually reflects on your business. That actually reflects on people don't trust you. They will be unhappy. And I think there could be a lot said for communication is key, but also good communication and correct communication and clear communication and concise communication allows this trust relationship with your customers that can make people super fans. And I know in my community, in my knitting community here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if the knitters love a pattern, they will buy every pattern. They don't care who, they may never make it. They have, hundreds of patterns in their queue. They'll just buy them if they trust the designer, if they trust the yarn company that's producing the patterns.
I mean, consider a knitter who's having a hard time finding a pattern in their size, that finds one and so excited. Oh my God, this is going to fit me. Look at this, the measurements, this is my size. And they buy the yarn and they get gauge and they all this money and time, buy the pattern. And it doesn't work. Like you said, it's confusing. It doesn't come out to the size they thought. The schematic meant something else, or the finished measurements and the size was confused, or, and they didn't get what was shown that was what they were told they were going to get. They're not going to buy your pattern again. They're going to be upset.
No.
And you're going to, as a designer, you're going to have a lot of questions and support issues from knitters contacting you, being like, wow, what did I do wrong? And knitters often, most of the time, are going to think they did something wrong, that it's their fault. And, once in a while that might be so, of course. I mean, some knitters also have responsibility for their own projects, but a lot of patterns lead knitters astray, and they're not going to buy your patterns again.
And we want designers to succeed. We're 100%. And so as tech editors, we're the #1 cheerleader of design. We're like, we want your pattern to be awesome. Because we want your business to succeed. And it's hard to make it as a designer these days. It's hard to make it as a hand dye company. It's hard to make it as a yarn company. And the way that you do that is by curating these fantastic relationships with your customers. And hello, we're all making patterns, and we want to love what we make, and we want success.
Clear and correct
on our needles. We want to get the finished item that is promised us. And while they're, the way that patterns are published may change. We talked about how printing is more expensive now. You might see some magazines now are not being produced anymore. The fact of the matter is we all still are going to have patterns. Patterns are going to be made somehow and produced, even if just digitally. So I don't think pattern making is going to go away. What I think may morph is what we include in the pattern. And we talk a lot about that, how that really is up to the designer, how much they want to help, how much they want to include. And they get to work with their testers and their tech editor to make it the best they can.
How to go about being honest about what your pattern offers and who your pattern's for, because the patterns have to deliver on the promise they make to the knitter.
There's an entire chapter on, I think you had mentioned it before, on hiring a tech editor and how to have a successful relationship with your tech editor. And I briefly went through it, but I'm really excited to, read it fully, because we have worked with some wonderful tech editors in the past, but I know that I have more to learn for sure about this. And I was wondering if either of you had any, if you could tell me what makes, who is a tech editor's dream client? What is it? What is it about a designer? How can we designers be the best clients possible to foster a good relationship with a tech editor?
Wow.
Don't ghost your tech editor. Don't do that. Write back, I think even if you don't use checklists, have some kind of way that you're organizing things. Even if your tech editor guides the organizational process, but correct the mistakes. Tell them what you've done differently. I don't mean to keep saying this, but communicating is so important.
100%.
Any kind of pattern can be made better, and any kind of relationship can be good if you're communicating what needs to be. So the tech editor's got to communicate what needs to be fixed. The designer's got to communicate when they can do it, that they've done it, how they've done it. That's got to be good. That's got to be good. And you've got to be able to, I think you have to feel safe. I know this seems silly to talk about in a business situation, but you have to feel safe. You as a tech editor, you want your designer to feel safe talking with you. This project, you have to be able to feel safe with your tech editor. And if you don't ghost them. Don't stay in it and, feel like you're stuck. It's okay to move on if it doesn't work out, but communicate, I would say. Got to communicate.
I love how in the book it mentions how vulnerable You can feel as a designer when you're sending something off, basically you're sending it off and asking somebody to find every mistake I've made and then tell me about it. When in
Super
reality,
hard.
like that is not generally what most people want to hear. Like, hi, could you please take a good look at me and point out every single flaw,
Right.
and then I will do my best to fix it.
It being
Um,
edited is
yeah,
hard. It's
it is
hard.
very difficult, but I love that you address it and just point it out, because I think that so many of us just assumed that people were just wonderful enough that it was like a few little errors, you know, here and there, and just everybody else is fine and we're the only ones screwing it all up, you know, because every once in a while you just have a clunker or you make a big like
Mm-hmm.
error somewhere. It happens, especially when you're like churning out more and more designs. And I think just knowing that that is an everybody thing. That's an everybody thing. We all feel vulnerable when we're sending our creations out into the world.
And I think part of being confident in who you are as a designer is acknowledging I do make mistakes. Okay, what can I
Mhm.
learn from this? Seeing mistakes not as a stain on your character or even your ability to design and create, but mistakes in a pattern are just, it's just part of the process. Okay, how can I make this better? How can we work together as a team to turn this pattern into something great? I think for a designer to have the mindset that my tech editor is on my team and is we're collaborating together. I do not have to do this by myself.
Yeah.
They've got my back. They want the best for me. Um, and to have that viewpoint means that you are on the right path to having a successful pattern. If there's some animosity there, that can make things really difficult. Tech editors love to find mistakes. It's a treasure hunt for us, but you cannot take what they point out to you personally, but
Yeah.
rather say, oh, great, let's fix it. Okay. Oh, great. We found another one. Fantastic. That's one will not have to deal with in customer service with
Yes.
my makers.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is just no good when something slips by, you know. That's the worst feeling. I think after having experienced, you know, something slip by and get into, you know, a knitter's hand, that has changed my perspective on, you know, having a lot of feedback from a tech editor, because that is way less painful than having something out in the world that is just incorrect and having to have a knitter say, hey, this isn't right. And then you look at it and you're like, oh
And there
no.
there is an ongoing debate on whether or not people even need a tech editor. And maybe some in your audience would be like, who needs a technical editor? I can edit my own patterns if I work them myself, or if I have, a friend knit the pattern.
We're a little frozen. Are
Oh,
you
she
back
froze a
yet?
little.
We'll wait for her to come back here.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
I lost me again.
There we
yeah,
go.
but you're back. You're back.
We tech editors are trained to see things and to do things in a way that just an average knitter won't be able to do.
Yes, that is the truth. I mean, for Nomadic Knits, we tech edit all the patterns and then we test knit them. And there's editing that happens all the way through. And even after the tech editing and the testing, you know, once we put them into layout, then there's sometimes even more style editing that happens. There's just so many things. And Melissa and I did all of that back and forth together. And you would think that you would catch it all the first time, right? And that's just never how it happens. And it's never just one person that sees it all or gets
Well, and
everything.
remember that every time you go into that document, it might not even be that you're finding something old. Every time you go into that document, you're possibly introducing error. And
Yes.
anytime you make a change, it needs to be checked.
Yes, exactly.
Anytime you go into that document, there's potential for new things to be found, because if you make a change, If you've introduced error in any way, it's got to be checked
Mhm.
again. It's got to be
I
checked.
remember getting, I would sometimes get edits, and I I was the one I do the formatting for the magazine, so I do all the layout and everything. And I'd get an edit where I had to insert like 12 characters, and I would just about bring me to my knees, as we're like a week from deadline because I'm like 12 characters. Oh my God. Now we have to go through and check the next 4 pages again
Right.
in every single
Exactly.
margin and paragraph. And, because that's true. It's so easy to introduce an error when you're fixing an error. It can throw off your style, your formatting, your line breaks just all of a sudden become nonsensical because
Yep.
there's, just it's happening right one line before the end of a section of the pattern. There's a total page break, and you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yep.
So then you have to, yeah, those things you need extra eyes for. And also if you're trying to test knit your own pattern, the other thing is that you're reading your own language. Of
Mhm.
course, you know how to do it. Number one, it was in
Yep.
your head that way. And then, you're reading the same language that you speak, but not everybody else is. And so
Well,
having the
also
benefit.
we skim over stuff. We don't think we're skimming over stuff. We don't
Yeah.
mean to be skimming over stuff, but we are. We're flying
Yeah.
right over it. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Tech editing and same as like proofreading, you go slow. You are
Yeah.
reading every character and checking style mistakes, for example, or formatting mistakes or punctuation. You're looking at every single thing. And in a line of instruction, which of course knitting is patterns of millions of lines of instruction, every article has a potential to screw it up, right? Like if the comma's out of place, it means a whole new thing. So
Exactly. It's a completely different pattern. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it's so I totally understand that concept of, yes, tech editing matters for everyone. It really does. There's no um and I get that that can feel like a roadblock to some people because, tech editors need to be compensated just like designers need to be compensated and dyers need to be compensated. So it is an expense. And I do think that like having this book as a resource
Mhm.
gives you an added layer of detail as a designer, to check yourself and to make the most out of your time with a tech editor. Um,
Well,
because
and to do is to, the better the pattern is before you get it to them,
yes,
because I mean, we get it. Like that's a real concern.
it
Yes,
is.
tech editing is important and we think it's really valuable and everyone should work with a tech editor on their patterns if they're writing patterns. But it's a real concern, the cost, because the
Yeah.
more we include in patterns and the more we want to offer, it adds to what needs to be checked.
Yep.
And it's not always, it's not enough to knit it through, especially something in multiple sizes. A tech editor is looking at all the sizes and how the whole pattern works together and
Yeah.
everything relates to each other in the pattern. So it's a real concern, the cost. I get that. But
Yeah.
it's a valuable, it's valuable.
It's
So if
very
you get our
valuable.
book, if you get our
Yeah.
book, we have all the checklists for you to make the pattern as good as possible, as correct and clear as possible before it goes to the editor. The fewer mistakes there are in the pattern, the cheaper the tech edit, and that can reduce the cost for designing.
Yes. And it can also protect your designer's heart as you send it out into the world because it will, you'll feel good about what you've done because you have a little bit more knowledge in your pocket. You're going to feel good about it. You're going to send it out and you are going to feel more like you are collaborating with your teammate, your tech editor, because you're speaking the same language. Um, and I just feel like it's such a more fulfilling experience when everybody is kind of on the same page and speaking that same language and having an understanding of what the other has on their plate. I mean, I think that always helps in collaborations when you um, understand what your collaborator is taking care of to get to the point where you're working together. It just, makes us all a little bit more understanding of time and energy and those things that it takes to get to something beautiful. So I think that this, will really can help everybody speak the same language. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I had read or heard you speak about, we even talked about it so far today. We were talking about how you were getting the same questions over and over. So this isn't so much about the questions, but what would you say the top 3 errors are that come to you as tech editors? Like, what are the most common that you just like, that's like the low hanging fruit? You're going to swoop in and you're going to fix these things first, and then you're going to help your designers not make those mistakes anymore.
I think Kristina might have a different 3, but I'll give my 3.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's have it.
Let's see if my internet's connection will be stable enough for 3. Gauge is not what it like. A designer will make a gauge swatch and then write a pattern off of it and then make the sample. And the final sample actually has a different gauge. And then so the instructions and the pattern, the gauge doesn't actually match the pattern. As this happened a lot, and it happens pretty frequently, if there's issues with numbers and it doesn't match the measurements, it's usually related to a gauge issue, like the gauge has been mismeasured. And that's why we did a whole chapter on gauge. The second thing, well, I don't know if this is really an error, it's more of a style issue, but there can be inconsistencies in the way that abbreviations or punctuation is used. And that makes a hiccup in the maker, like, oh, well, why is this different? When you make things different and you don't use the same terminology or the same way of talking about things, then it's actually a style error, but can lead to technical errors. And then I think the third thing is the finished measurements of the actual thing doesn't really match what you're making, like the stitch counts and all of that. And that can lead back to gauge, but it can be other technical errors too.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it.
Ding,
That's
ding.
what it is. That's what it is. And those are big
Those
things.
are easy to fix.
They're big things, because the one in the middle, having little style errors like that, they will cause confusion, and confusion will cause mistakes. And then you're right. And the measurements, the gauge, all that's the bread and butter here. That's got to be right. And there can be lots of different reasons that happens. And there's lots of different ways designers need to choose how to solve those problems. But yeah, very often.
And I think part of the thing too is designers get to decide how to solve it. This is the designer's work. And I think that's something designers need to recognize, is that that generally speaking, editors are not going to fix your work. You have the agency as a designer to decide how to solve the problems. A lot of times we'll mark things on a pattern and say, we'll give a suggestion on how to fix it, but then the designer will come back with something way more clever because they're in the work. It's their process, their creative process. And I love seeing how designers just brilliantly solve some of the issues together.
I mean, this is something that I think is important, because there is a little bit of, maybe it's something that's different, working as an independent designer directly with a tech editor, and not through a publisher or a bigger company or something. But like Sarah just said, the designer is the best one to make these decisions. They know the fix. You might see an error or see something that's wrong, but where did that error start? Where's that fix really got to be?
It might be farther back.
It might not need to be where you think it needs to be. The fix might be somewhere else. And like the gauge issue, is the gauge wrong, or did the sample come out wrong? Like, where's the fix got to be? And it's not always going to be something the tech editor can fix. Sometimes it is, but it's not always. And so I think designers do need to recognize that yes, tech editors are going to point out all your corrections. But even working with a publisher, myself anyway, I know I'm going to be fixing things, but I'm going to be asking the designer questions too, because they're the ones that are the best qualified to fix the problem, because they're pattern.
And I can tell you this anecdotally, this is the hardest part about writing this book because we're used to being in the editor's seat,
Mm,
working, correcting, making changes and, doing things from an editor standpoint. And it was hard to be edited for this book. Like we had to, now we got to go fix stuff. That number's wrong. Oh, the spreadsheet's wrong. Ah, and
I think we
we
were
get
quite
it.
bristly and defensive,
We were
probably.
bristly and defensive. Yes.
Like, what are you
Maybe
talking
just between us, like we grumble a little bit with you. We'd be nice to our editor, but
Oh yeah, we're super nice to them, but we'd be like,
we get it.
yeah, no
do
way.
they even knit? Do they even knit?
Did they
That's
read
what
the?
I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Did they read the manuscript? Yeah.
But we gave big giant thanks to our editor, and we even said, I'm sure this process took longer because we are editors, and so we would be nitpicking too,
Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I can imagine. I can imagine. But it is tough. It is tough as somebody who is normally the one
It
doing
is. I
that
mean, they had to.
portion.
Yeah, they had to say to us, and it was hard. They were like, "Please try not," because we'd be sending back
Copy
a
edits.
review, and we'd have like little typos, and we'd be fixing things. And she had to say on the last time, "Please try not to look at little proofreading issues. It's going to be proofread like 4 times. Try not to focus on that." But man, it's hard.
It is so
We
hard.
can't turn it off. I will tell you this, if there's anybody who's watching this now that is just like, what is technical editing? Oh, that sounds like me. Yeah, it is a particular character and personality. If you can see things, like you notice little things nobody else notices, and it like gets you excited to find things. Oh, yeah, you might be a technical editor. It's hard
it
to
might
turn
be
that
their
part of our
thing.
brain off.
It could be your calling. So if
It could
anybody out
be.
there is watching and all of this sounds really exciting and you already have thought of 5 different patterns that you've seen in the last month that you would really like to get your hands on and just, zhuzh it up a little bit, then tech editing might be your calling.
It may be, and we need great tech editors in the industry. There's always a need for great people who have a professional and enthusiastic view of making patterns great.
And I know that you both offer some resources. Obviously, the book is an amazing resource. If anybody is interested in, well, I said it before, if you do anything around knitting, you should just get the book. But if you're interested in tech editing, you absolutely should have this book. But also, if you're interested in tech editing, can you tell us where we can find you and what other services and kind of information that each of you offer?
I currently run the Tech Editor Hub, which is an online place for people to learn how to be a technical editor and to connect with tech editors. So if you're looking for a tech editor for your pattern, I do provide a resource for that, like where you can go put in, hey, I need a tech editor for this pattern. And I have a private list of more than 80 editors that can help you out. But if you want to be a technical editor, then you can come on over to my website, thetecheditorhub.com, and find out more about what it takes to become one. It's a fun business. That's what I'm doing now. And I also provide coaching for designers who want to learn how to grade but don't want to take a class. They want someone to walk them through each step in one of their designs. And I do that one-on-one through sarahwalworth.com.
That's a great program. I mean, that is a tough, grading is tough.
It is.
I'm sure that you make it less tough, but it really feels like a daunting task when you are tackling that as a designer, especially for the first time. And anytime really that the style of the garment that you're designing has changed, the grading shifts. It's not a like set it and forget it kind of thing. So that's fantastic. So you guys are also, tell me the other places where we can find you as well.
Go ahead, Kristina.
Well, I have a weekly newsletter that I send out through Substack, and also a special once a month post. And it's it's about this too. Resources for size inclusive, fat positive, pattern writing, and excellent pattern writing. And for designers, but also for knitters. I think we'll, and that's, you can get that, find that on my website. I do consulting with designers and tech editors on their business or patterns, things that are tripping them up that they need guidance on. Sarah and I have a Patreon for Tech Tip Talk, where we've built we have a little community of designers and tech editors and just really special people, where we talk about all kinds of things going on in there. And it's a really valuable resource, I think, because it's not necessarily expensive. You have access to us. You can ask all kinds of questions, but you also have access to all these wonderful minds and other people who are in the trenches with you that can give you feedback and that you can share your work with in a really supportive, special way. So that's a really cool thing that we're doing.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, just having some like-minded folk in a community where you can rely on each other and ask those little quick questions that you wonder where you're supposed to take. Sometimes we have these questions, like, where do I send this?
Ask.
Who's going to help me? So that sounds like a wonderful resource.
Well,
and
we're pretty chill. We're pretty chill too. So it's like a
Yeah.
chill, safe situation. It's not anything to get nervous about. Yeah.
And once a month, we are still on YouTube at techtiptalk.com. And we interview someone within the industry. We want to just hear what they have to say. We usually pick their brain about a particular topic. And our goal with our YouTube channel is to encourage designers in their business, to help them to see that they're not alone, and also to get some resources from other colleagues that are creating.
We have some pretty enlightening conversations with these designers and tech editors. You can also search by topic on our YouTube channel, and you can even just browse. Sarah's done a great job of making thumbnails for our videos that have the main topic of the conversation in the thumbnail. So you can just really quickly find things that you're looking for, topics that you want to know more about, people you want to hear from. So I think it's a really user-friendly place to find more information and get more insight.
Our goal is for people to have the information that they need, for not to be hidden. And so especially, hey, if you go to our YouTube channel and you subscribe, let us know who you want us to interview, because we don't know everybody. And most of the people that we've interviewed have been on the suggestion from our patrons or from other people who said, hey, you should interview this person. And it's been fantastic.
Or people that inspire us too. And the goal is for designers and to have success. That's the goal of all of this, so that knitters have success.
That's perfect. I mean, that's a great goal. And this is a really good, stepping off point for so many people. You created community and you created these spaces where people can come and get their answers. And now you have this gorgeous book. And I just want to say congratulations. It's no small feat accomplishing something like this. So everybody keep your eye out for this. Check out your local yarn shops. You can, I'll make sure that there are links to where you can find this as well if you don't have it at your local yarn shop. But you really should get your hands on it. We can also find you on Instagram, right? At Tech Tip Talks.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Nobody can say it. Oh, it's so funny. People in our real life, they're like, nobody can do it.
It is a mouthful, but it's easier to type in. So, and I'll also just put the link below here, and you can just go visit them and keep an eye on what they're doing, and check out their individual blogs and websites as well, especially if you have any aspirations of, designing or tech editing. These are the people you want to be talking to, and they have a wonderful sense of community, as you can tell, and are here to uplift you and encourage you and help you with the tools that you need to be successful and to contribute in a meaningful way to the knitting community. So I really hope that you will visit them. And thank you both so much for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers before we sign off here?
Thank you for having us, Becky. It's been a real privilege to chat with you.
Thanks, Becky. It's been great.
Oh, thanks for being here.